Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Eileen and on this channel I share videos in my small suburban edible garden. In today's video I'm going to show you my early spring vegetable garden. It's September and in New Zealand that's the first month of spring. So first things first, look at the sunshine. This is my top garden which is very shaded over the winter, so it's amazing to see some sun again. So the sun shines on this garden in stages, like the spot here doesn't get it until late morning, and this is where my Brussels sprouts are, some silver beet, a few onions, artichokes, some broccoli and kale that I planted in winter. So it's time for the Brussels sprouts to come out. I'll be wanting this space in a few weeks' time. The stalks still have a few sprouts on them to harvest, but I'm always excited to harvest the heads of the Brussels sprouts because they grow one large sprout. They're really yummy. We slice them in half and then we roast them until the outside leaves are crispy and the inside is soft. When I harvest my crops, unless they're diseased, I'll always chop them at root level and I leave the root ball in the soil to break down and feed the soil life as opposed to just ripping it up. Then I just cover the roots with some compost and some mulch and just leave it in there to break down. When I want to plant in a bed that has the roots in it, I will just add another layer of compost if needed and then just plant directly in that. It doesn't matter that the roots of the previous plants are underneath there. We have broad beans coming along nicely. I'm really looking forward to those. And some cauliflowers are forming from early winter planted seedlings. Here's a little bit of my garlic. I have it growing in lots of spaces this year. Here are the last remaining fennel. It's nice to see strawberry flowers appearing and fruit blossoms on the trees. This is a Sanguine peach tree. So we had 3 peaches of this last year and I'm hoping this year we'll get some more. This is my Amiga Plum. So this time of year when deciduous fruit trees are in bloom, I really like to explore the areas around me, the public areas around me, and see if I can find any wild fruit trees. It's easier to spot them when they have their blossoms. I found another wild plum tree on my walk the other day, so I've made a note of where it is, and then in summer I'll go back and do some foraging. I have quite a few fruit trees on my property, but they're all quite young, so I still rely on a lot of foraging. This is my Sundrop apricot. I planted some potatoes earlier this month in these 2 beds here. They're pretty small beds, so the potatoes are squeezed in pretty close, about 25 centimetres apart. Ideally, for bigger potatoes you would want more space, but oh well. I don't dig a trench, I just add on a layer of compost and then make a separate hole for each potato. And I pop them in with their sprouts facing up, then cover them with compost and mulch so that they're covered with around 10 centimetres worth of organic matter. And then as the potato greens grow, I will just add on more compost or mulch to stop any growing potatoes from reaching the sun. Now I wanted to talk about flowers in the garden. I, especially in this top garden, am a huge fan of letting flowers self-seed. They're so helpful to attract pollinators and beneficial predatory insects. They provide a ground cover. Now obviously if you need the space for vegetables, flowers like this borage can be a pain because they self-seed so quickly. But Is it that hard to really just pull out some seedlings that you don't want? I don't think it is. So I really like having this one in the garden. Any large excess borage plants can also be chopped back and used as a green mulch, full of nutrients for the soil. So in this top garden, because sunlight is an issue, and because I now use my front lawn garden to grow the majority of my food, I'm quite keen to turn this into like a flower field, so to speak. Each year more flowers self-seed, and each year I have to do a little bit less. I like herbs like thyme and oregano as well because they provide not only ground cover but then also flowers for the bees. I still want to grow some vegetables up here, but the majority I want is flowers. Here are the peas I planted out last month. They're starting to climb now, and then on the other side of those archways I'll be planting beans maybe the end of next month. So in the front garden, which is now my main vegetable patch, I'm letting some things go to seed for the bees. I've got a few dwarf fruit trees in this garden, so I definitely want bees here to help pollinate those. It's pretty full, this garden, at the moment, so the job for the next 6 weeks is to harvest things and make some space for summer crops. I have a lot of red mustard left, and I'm thinking of fermenting it along with some daikon and making like a kimchi style ferment. And now a little update on the seedlings that I started last month. Maybe 2 weeks ago I repotted some of my biggest seedlings, some of my brassicas and my first round of tomatoes and some chili. I soaked the seedlings first in some seaweed tonic and water, and then I replanted them in bigger pots. I'm using the back of a teaspoon to do this in this video, but I wouldn't usually use that. The reason I'm doing it is because I couldn't find what I usually use, which is a wooden paintbrush. Using a wooden stick like a paintbrush or like a pencil is way more gentle than a teaspoon. Anyway, I just loosened the seedlings carefully, and then I pick them up by their leaves, not their stem, and pop them into the bigger container. This is now about 2 weeks later, and everything is looking really good. My Chinese cabbages here are going into the garden soon, once I figure out where I want to put them. Got some basil growing too, my next round of tomatoes, some eggplants, and some lettuce that needs to go in the garden as soon as possible. Now here is one of my New Zealand yams, also known as oca, that I'll be planting this year. This is one of the ones that I grew last year, but I harvested it in June or July this year. Now that it's warming up inside, they're starting to sprout. I'll be planting this one in a pot, and I'll probably plant that out late next month when all chance of frost has gone. I wanted to show you something new that I'm trying this year, as of yesterday. These are earth gems. I think they're also called oca sometimes, but they are not the same family as the New Zealand yam oca that I showed you just before. So I found these at the supermarket, and I'm really keen to see if I can get them to sprout. This is my experiment for this year. I really hope it works though, because the plant sounds really amazing. The leaves can be used like spinach, and the tubers are just so pretty. So I've popped a few of them in the soil, and then I'm also just leaving a few at room temperature to see which way I can get them to sprout. Fingers crossed. And here's an update on my kumara sprouts. I've moved them to a bowl of water as opposed to the glass that I had them in last month, because they were a bit big for the glass and they kept tipping it over. They're growing nicely and starting to grow the first roots too. And that's it for this month's garden update. For the rest of the month I am going to be planting out those brassica seedlings and the lettuce, starting off a few more seeds inside, a few more summer seeds, and then a lot of harvesting to make some space. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.